Terrance Gangsta Williams. Birdman's brother was once one of the most feared people in the New Orleans area, being one of the early members of Cash Money, even going as far as saying he put the first $1,000 into the legendary label as an investment at a time where Cash Money and Lil Wayne were some of the biggest artists from the area, some might say even the world. An infamous situation where he allegedly gave information to the law enforcement had his whole career, status, and face come crashing down. It even still affects him today. Man, we gotta talk about the ongoing situation with Terrance Gangsta Williams that even people like Boosie, T.I., and many others have really talked about in the ongoing situation and how it really affects rap music as a whole, man, because his whole story is crazy, man. From going as Cash Money's top shooter, mob hitman, to allegedly giving information that allowed the police to arrest someone else in connection with several unsolved murders, man. We gotta get into the whole situation right now. But before we do, I'm gonna need y'all to like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna run on this video, man. You already know. Man, make sure y'all turn on the notification bell, and if you're watching this and you're a reoccurring viewer, make sure you check out the subscribe button, because there's like thousands of y'all that be watching the videos but not subscribed, but still re-watching the videos, man. So y'all tap in. If you've been an early supporter of Wayne, Juvenile, Turk, and the rest of the Hot Boys, and just the whole history of New Orleans at the time, then there's no doubt that you know who Terrance Gangsta Williams is. He was one of the most feared people, part of the whole Cash Money crew, and at one point had to sort of distance himself because of a lot of different scenarios, man. This dude got a crazy ass story. From going to jail and getting sentenced to life in prison plus 100-something years, to being photographed with the dude sitting in his lap and basically getting exposed for that, on top of the countless other accusations of snitching on people and giving information to the feds that apparently got someone arrested for an unsolved murder. Man, this dude has lived the craziest lives that I've ever seen in hip-hop, and we gotta get into it because it applies to so many more things. But in order to really get into it, we really gotta start from the jump, man. Growing up in the New Orleans area, he was known as a shooter and alleged hitman. In fact, he said that the name Hot Boys actually was brought because Birdman saw that him and his 3 other homies were running hot throughout the street. Unfortunately, his 2 other friends died before they were able to see the name of their group be used in a positive light, such as Lil Wayne and all of them sort of coming up out of the city and being some of the biggest artists in the world. In his own words, he said that he remembered back when Cash Money used to rent one raggedy bus to ride out of town to do concerts. I would be right there for some of the times, 2 guns and my bulletproof vest, while the CMR crew were entertaining people. I was hooking up heroin deals. His whole life consisted of shootouts, drug dealing, and amongst a whole bunch of other things, which resulted him in ultimately receiving a life sentence, especially the number of times that he basically was arrested for murder and got an attempted murder and spent all his time in and out of prison and jail, man. One of the craziest stories is the 1997 unsolved murder of one of the first artists signed to Cash Money Records. 22-year-old UNLV rapper Robert Yellowboy Thomas appears to be his shooting death. YMCMB's 3 founding fathers apparently knew everything about. That's what the feds were alleging. You may recall back in 1999, Gangster Williams reported to have around $100,000 to start the Cash Money record label, was delivered a life sentence plus 240 years for a continued criminal enterprise and conspiracy to commit murder. Now, obtained court documents uncovering Gangsta's February 2008 official declaration and give up information in 2 murders, awarding him a sentence reduction. These allegations of snitching have been around for so long that they've been following his career and have been the subject of many Vlad interviews and interviews just in general, and people looking at him from a side eye, which definitely sort of marked his whole criminal career and made it look a lot worse than everything else that, you know, everything that in the 90s people looked up for him for. even though it was kind of, you know, murdering people in his own community and whatever. But at the end of the day, people really felt some way about these allegations. And on top of that, they brought up a whole bunch of pictures that showed that he had dudes sitting in his lap and stuff, and basically called him a hypocrite for justifying the whole gang type of lifestyle while at the same time having a suspect past. The real nail in the coffin in Terrance E. Williams following affidavit in support of sentence reduction filed at that time, where Gangsta confirms the free man time he was bargaining for in exchange for the information he provided. Nearly 2 years later, an arrest was made in connection to a cold case homicide. According to documents, that murder was one of the two detailed by the feds by Terrance E. Williams. Here's what the NOLA reported on April 12, 2010. A dozen years after 17-year-old Colin Keynes was gunned down in Central City, New Orleans, police have arrested and booked a suspect for first-degree murder. On October 8, 1997, police responding to a call of a shooting at 2nd and LaSalle Streets found Keynes' body inside of a vehicle with a gunshot wound to his head. Keynes died in the hospital. The murder went unsolved until NOPD detective Decaida Barnes reinvestigated the case, said NOPD spokeswoman Officer Hitman Williams, and identified 37-year-old Alton Patterson as a suspect last week. Police booked Patterson with 1 count of attempted first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree murder. Get the Gat rapper Alton G. Patterson, artistically known as Lil L, was signed to Cash Money in the early 90s, we're told. Patterson was found not guilty of the murder charges against him. As for the December 26, 1997 murder of Ishmael Fernandez, cited in the docs, despite Terrance Williams' drop detail, the murder case is said to remain unsolved to date. Those were just two of the known and publicized cases that basically came out in the past that allowed him to like sort of shine a light on the fact that Terrance Gangsta Williams might be an informant. But then recently paperwork just sort of leaked the other day that showed that he apparently helped police solve over 40 homicides, where the alleged paperwork states the New Orleans Cold Case Homicide Division sent a letter to the USAD of the Eastern District of Louisiana in which it outlined Williams' cooperation in 40 cold cases. It continues, in an attempt to reduce his life sentence, Williams closed 40 cold case homicides, which honestly, just based off the fact that we know for certain the past issues that he had, where he basically helped sort of close cases that didn't necessarily even like work out in the end. These cases come out definitely do not look good, because if that's the case, I mean, it would make sense that he got out of jail, because, you know, he eventually was able to get out of jail for something. And we know for certain that those cold cases didn't come out the first time, but those cases that out of the 40 that he apparently solved, maybe he has something to do with it. I mean, the paperwork's not necessarily real, but everything else besides it lines up. I mean, the paperwork could be real. We don't really know for certain, but definitely it does line up, because he was facing a life sentence for a number of things, man. So I don't know. The ongoing theme basically with the whole argument with Boosie and Terrance Gangsta Williams is the whole fact that people definitely felt some type of way about his allegations. Boosie went even to go and talk about the whole picture that leaked of him that had a dude sitting on his lap and stuff. Honestly, I don't even really know anything about that. Honestly, it is a super crazy picture, and it wouldn't even surprise me, you know, nowadays, knowing about like how Birdman used to kiss Lil Wayne and shit like that. You know, they were doing some other stuff, you know, they were called hot boys and shit. But hey, that's anyone, you know, if that's how you like your ball rolling, then that's how you get your ball rolling. But whatever the case is, people have a lot to say about him, and I feel like his whole story in the hip-hop lore is honestly crazy, man. Crazy as fuck, because who would have thought a dude pictured in this would be the same guy pictured in this, and on top of everything would have a whole life sentence, and for some reason is out to even talk about the whole sentence and out to do whatever he wants to today. You know, at the end of the day, I can't really follow him though, because he was coming out of an area that was super crazy, and nowadays he does more positive stuff and is like you know, inspirational speaker and talks on Vlad TV and just talks about the old days of Hot Boys that like people probably want to know. You know, at the end of the day, this is one of the most popular rappers of all time that basically came out of that group. So honestly, it's pretty wild just in the fact that he was a part of all that history. But at the end of the day, man, it is a telltale that whatever you do in that street life is going to catch up to you, man. And at the end of the day, he kind of described it very well in that whole letter that he wrote in jail that he basically said that, like, at the end of the day, everyone acts like they're on top of the world, but when you're arrested and going to jail, like, you're calling anyone and everyone to try to get you out on bond and try to help you get a lawyer, man. Which is the craziest quote I've ever heard, and the most accurate situation, especially seeing with all the snitch activity that be going on today, man. But hey, let me know in the comments what y'all think about this shit, man. Real stay shit. You already know what's going on. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, man. Peace.